someone like myself, you want to go to Kansas and be on it, right? You want to have a big day right off the bat there. Be aggressive at Talladega, try to get some points, and then...
Wait, what'd you say?
Be aggressive at Talladega, try to get some points.
So this is on the record.
What?
Not just going to try to get 20?
I'm going to drive to my car's ability.
The following is a production of Dirty Mo Media.
Hey guys, welcome to Actions Detrimental. I am Denny Hamlin, driver of the number 11 FedEx Toyota this past weekend at Bristol. Jared, would you like to introduce yourself, even though people know who you are?
People know me.
They know you.
Anchorman quote, right? Anchorman?
That's right. Actually, I've never seen Anchorman.
What?
Wow.
I know.
That's shocking from you, the king of all movie quotes.
I need to do it. It's not my proudest accomplishment not watching Anchorman. I just hear people talk about it all the time, and I just haven't sat down to actually watch it.
As a person that travels a lot, how have you not on a flight in your bus?
I know you've seen every other movie, and you quote every other movie.
I know. I don't know. My goal is by the end of the year is watch Anchorman.
All right, full review coming up at some point.
Okay.
Anyway, Red Vest 311. Go ahead.
All right.
Start the show.
Bristol. We had trucks. We had ARCA. We had Xfinity. We had Cup. What do you want to dive into first?
Let's start with the Cup race.
Oh,
What we saw on Sunday.
Just go right to it.
No need to bury the lead.
All right. Cup race. Well, what do y'all want to make of the Cup race? I know how they felt on the teardown about it. It wasn't surprising to me that they had that reaction. My only question would be is like what, and my crew chief said it. What do we expect?
Well, we saw a race in the spring, which Goodyear didn't know exactly what happened. We saw a fun race there. Yeah. They talked about tire fall off. So I think fans, now you did caution people last week on the podcast, but I think a lot of fans expected some fall off.
So going into last week, I asked, my crew chief asked me, he says, all right, tell me your opinion of what do you think we're going to see this weekend? And I said, I think we're going to see, I'm 60-40, but my 60% is definitely leaning towards it's going to play out just like last fall. You've got more series there, more rubber on the racetrack. I just think that it's going to be like last fall. That's my gut. Now, it could be swayed. And so I asked a couple drivers that were at the test what they thought it was going to be, and they stated that it was going to be like the spring. And so at that point, we kind of prepared the weekend based off of tire wear, the setup of our car, things like that. So we how you say this, kind of detuned our car slightly. Some things we could not take back out of it. But we detuned our car slightly to try to make it better for the tire wear, and we didn't really have any. And so I think we paid the price a little bit in qualifying for it, and then certainly our short run speed was not, as great as it had been in the past there.
What information are you using going into this race to make those decisions on how you're going to set the car? Like, is it just a hunch that, well, we saw this race in the spring, Goodyear says they're bringing back the same tires, so many people did the test.
So that's the key, though. It's not the same tire. We have to all recognize that it's not the same, right? So the only thing that is questionable for me, which it doesn't make sense, is that when I said earlier in the year that someone pissed in the mix, the only counter to that is we did actually run last fall's tire during the spring. It was so when they gave us an extra set of tires in the spring during all that tire debacle, the extra set that they gave us was made from last fall that had, zero fall off, right? When I say zero fall off, that's an extreme, but it didn't have tire fall off. So we did actually run last fall's tire in the spring, and it still wore out. So that's the only head scratcher. Other than that, people have to understand that the process of making the tires is a very imperfect process. And, there's a lot of reasons to this, but I think this is just kind of what I hear is that where they make the racing tires is very, 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 very antiquated versus how they make new street Goodyear tires. The equipment they have, the preciseness of how the tires are put together, the mixture, all that stuff is very precise on your street tires. In the racing, I think that there's something with like unions and labor where they have to use more manpower or something. I'm not really sure. This, again, I'm trying to make sense of it, but I've had people from my team, people from 2311 go and visit Goodyear, and they were shocked to what they walk into, and it was like, oh wow, this is where we build tires that run 210 miles an hour. Like, ooh.
It sounds like the street tires are very, well made, and these racing tires are more or less recycled.
You're being harsher than what I'm trying to be, but I'm trying to inform our listeners that it's a very imperfect process, and they have tolerances. Even when they make these tires, they have tolerances that, we're okay with this tire coming out being X amount harder than what it's supposed to be, or X amount softer than what it's supposed to be. One example I can give you is I can't remember if it was the spring of this year or the fall of last year, Martinsville. There was a date code that was 0.3 faster than all the other date codes. And so I believe at that time, Goodyear was like, yeah, that came in a little low on our softness, but we thought it was enough in range where it really wouldn't make a difference. And it was amazing at Martinsville. Whoever put them on, drove straight to the front. It was like they had an option tire versus the pro. But that tells you how big the window of variance is. And so in order to get this better or even understand why the spring happened, all the tolerances got to be tightened up. But how are you going to tighten it up with the very imperfect process that we do? I just don't know how that's possible.
Fix the process?
Yeah, make it more perfect.
I am telling you, I think that there's something that has to do with unions and labor is why they cannot change how they make the tires.
We've never needed a Goodyear representative on this show more than now.
Yeah. And so in the end, I'm somewhat sticking up for Goodyear, but I'm not. I have to be very careful. Jim is very, very, very sensitive to talking about Goodyear. Those are his boys. So I just...
Okay, well then you can just put the blame on NASCAR, because it feels like
Okay.
Goodyear's trying to bail NASCAR out for this car that's not good on short tracks. It's like, this car is not the best, so make us a tire that fixes this problem for us. So
you should have your own show, Jared. You're not wrong. You're not wrong in any way or aspect. We are trying to save this car, or the idea of how this car got made, and that is to create parity. All the cars are the same. The drivers will be the deciding factor of how you finish on that day. The driver, the crew chief, things like that, engineers. But that we've shared our driving data. All the cars and the parts and the pieces are the same. The parts and pieces of the cars are the same. So the variance between a good car and a bad car at a place like Bristol is probably 1/10.5 realistically of race pace, except for the 66 car. However, I saw the 66 car getting a lot of flack from other people. But let me tell you something. Who was driving the 66? Was it Timmy?
no, Josh Bilicki.
Bilicki? I think he did a fine job. I think given the pace of his car, he got out of the way the best that he possibly could all day long. Now, sometimes he had to run low or high or whatever, but I never saw him really switch directions that much. So shout out to Josh Bilicki. I thought he did okay job. You know, you need slow cars in the field. If you don't have slow cars, you'll never have passing.
Right. And at this point, how do we know that Josh Bilicki just didn't get a different tire mixture than everybody else? That's possible.
That's good. That's good.
I think what's most disappointing about when we see these type of races, though, is that it's a reminder that it's not necessarily the driver's skill that's separating the cars in the field, right? It's because
Right.
Truex ran up front
Right.
all day, and then as soon as he had a penalty and was put to the back, he couldn't move. And Truex is a damn good driver.
Because the advantage you need to have over the car in front of you needs to be 2/10. And even at a 2/10 advantage, to actually complete the pass, if the person who you are trying to pass doesn't want you to pass, you can hold them up for an infinite amount of time. I think we saw that with Suarez and Ty Gibbs, right? I mean, how long did he run behind Suarez?
I was wondering if Gibbs was just going to get frustrated and
Just knock him out of the way?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
and basically after that
he probably
speeding, he was
should
back
have.
there.
He probably should have, but I think at that time he was already reeling. He was already backing up. So if he thought he was going to continue to go forward, yeah, knock him, get him out of the way. Say, all right, I'm done riding behind you here, and then move on and try to gain those 3 or 4 spots he needed. But at the time, by the time he caught the 99, I think the ship had sailed on speed and he had lost it.
Is that something that you recognize as well? Because there was moments in this race where it seemed like when you were running 4th or 5th that Briscoe or Bell might have been faster than you, but you could just run the top, and it was like, well, you're not going to pass me on the bottom. So
it certainly was difficult too. I mean, the advantage you had to have, and really there's some of it is an advantage, speed advantage you need to have over the car in front of you. But other than that, it's also just timing it, right? Trying to time when the car in front of you is going to catch some traffic. When is their option? When are they going to have to go low? So maybe then I can jam it in up high and get position. So it's hard. Passing is really, really hard because all the cars run relatively the same speed. I mean, if I could put a graph up here of like all of our lap times, it just doesn't, they're all in the same band. And, when it comes to fall off, they fell off like.
What was your lap time from lap 1 to the last lap of the...
Okay. So I heard that immediately Goodyear came in and says, guys, we had a second fall off. Well, yeah, in the first run of the day is always the cleanest track. You're going to run the fastest lap time. Once we got in a rhythm, the leaders could run 15.5s, and they ended the run almost 100 laps later running like 16.20s. So 7/10 over 100 laps. Now, if you're not first, second, or third, your lap time fall off was 4/10. That's just it's just not enough to create passing. And so, Jared, you were right that it is a car problem. We are trying to fix it with tires because that's the most economical way for us to fix it. Me as a car owner, I do not want to buy any more parts or pieces for this next gen car. We already have a tough enough time keeping up with all the changes that we've had to do to this thing. I said years ago, we got to just design a next gen 2.0, take that off the record because it's just going to be way too expensive. We just didn't do a great job with design from the get-go, and this is what we got. And I tried to ask NASCAR 8 months, 10 months, a year before this car was released, are you sure you have it driving correctly in traffic? All types of racetracks. This is our opportunity to build a car that is good on all different types of tracks. Yep, we're sure. And then they had a panic moment 1 month before the season or 2 months before the season when they actually put it in traffic and realized you can't pass in it. So that was, it's unfortunate. We've just been trying to wind this ball of yarn ever since, trying to get it fixed. And it's gotten better at some tracks, and it seems like the tire is something certainly that shows fruit to better racing. I want to be nice to Goodyear because they've done some things really in the last year that have been groundbreaking that certainly I believe shows promise in the future. They didn't want to come up with a whole new compound. They actually, they wanted this race to play out more like the spring race. But it just, the conditions weren't the same or the mixture wasn't the same, right? And so it was a swing and a miss, but I'm sure they'll go to work on it. Surely with the fan sentiment from the race itself not being pleased with what they saw, they'll come back with another tire yet. And what it's going to take is, and I've been a huge advocate of this, is you've got to wear out the left side tires. The left side tires is the key to lap time fall off, because once you wear out the lefts, the more pressure goes on the rights, and here we go. Now you're going to wear out all 4 tires. So you got to create really grippy lefts. They're doing that for Martinsville. I'm really excited to see how Martinsville race turns out. The softest compound ever created is going on the left side there, and then an even softer right. So there's good things on the horizon. This is not, it's not all negative. There's certainly some light at the end of the tunnel. So let's just be patient with it. Let Goodyear do their jobs, figure this out, and make some adjustments for the next time.
NASCAR treated the track before the race. Is there anything that they could have done differently?
Yeah, that was prompted by a text message chain. Well, it started in the driver's chat, and then it kind of went on. There was a separate chat there for just the playoff drivers to voice their opinions on what to do. I think there was 70% that wanted it one way, and then at the last minute, maybe 1 or 2 ding in and say, no, I don't like that idea, and then that creates pause. And so it like we've learned in this whole owners thing, getting 36 to all agree on something is just impossible. So I think they went with kind of what they thought was the best and the recommendations that was given to them, which was, put PJ1 down at the bottom. And the reason for that is the drivers believed that the top was going to be too dominant. I will say that I think lap time wise, straight lap time wise, the top, middle, and bottom were very, 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 very close in speed. There wasn't a whole lot of advantage to running one lane or another. It just, the bottom wasn't quite fast enough to really for you to make incomplete passes. So the top was able to really hold off the bottom when it needed to, unless your car was elite, like Kyle Larson's.
Is that why early in the race you immediately were off that bottom line, it looked like, and you were trying to make...
Yeah, I just didn't want to run in the wake of the car in front of me. I just was trying to get clean air really kind of any way that I could. And at that time, I realized, that the middle is actually, a pretty good place to be. I saw Bubba making some pretty aggressive passes through the middle and top on restarts. And so, it seemed like the track was pretty level set, bottom to top. But if you remember, the track was level set bottom to top back when they reconfigured it 10 years ago, maybe 15 years ago. And then they ground the top because they didn't like how fast the top was, because it became a top line train. So they ground it, and which made it more of a top line train. And so it's just a challenge that track, when you have cars that all run the same speed, good luck. You're just not going to create passing that way. That's the downside to parity, and that's the downside to star power, things like that, right? This is a more broad argument, but there's a reason why the Chiefs and the Ravens always play primetime games, right? Because they have the stars and people tune in to watch them. The fundamental design of this next gen car is to create it more equal, and while I think it's created more equal, it's just become more of a track position race more than ever. So your differentiators are your pit crews, your drivers, your engineers, like I talked about earlier. But with that, you kill star power, because if everyone's the same, who's your stars? Right? You need the best to go out there and win, and they did this weekend. So it's just, I don't know, but you got to have cars to pass. there's not enough, like Chris Gabehart said, there's not enough things for us to work on to really differentiate the speeds of the cars. There's just not much to it. I mean, here's something that's just interesting. Todd Gilliland finished 32nd. His last lap of the race was a 16.506. Kyle Larson won the race. Todd Gilliland was 4 laps down. He ran a 16.506. Okay? Kyle Larson's last lap was a 16.494. They're running the same times. It doesn't matter whether you're running. And if you look at the lap time, the average lap time, everyone's running 16.4s and 5s and 6s. Everyone. So you'd have to fundamentally say that we made a mistake here and we need to change this, or we need to change as fans our perception of what good races are. Because I thought, like others, that this is the best race you're going to get considering what we've got.
You're not going to get fans to change what their opinion of good is, though.
You saw a really good movie in the spring, and now here's the second portion of this movie.
And it bombed.
Which that typically does happen.
And take out, if there wasn't the playoff elimination, it would have been even worse.
Just remember, too, you had at least 10 drivers in the field that were just happy running where they were at. Those, with this is the negative part to cut lines, eliminations, things like that.
That's because they were running well. Like those drivers that you're talking about were running.
William Byron, Alex Bowman, we're happy. We're running 10th.
But could they?
7th.
But could they?
We're good. We're good.
Could they
don't make a mistake?
Huh? You talking about how it's impossible to pass? So even if they weren't okay with,
but
10th,
they're not going to push it. When I got to top 3 or so. At that time, I told Chris, do not talk to me about points. Just let me race. But I can see what's going on, right? I see when we lap someone who I'm battling in points with. I know that they're not having a great day, and I know that if I just beat them at this point, I'm good to go. So what do? I get to the finish line because that's what's the matter. I don't want to cause a caution. I'd love to go win the race, but people don't understand. You have to push it. You have to push every inch, which means getting up closer to the wall. If you hit the wall, bam, you bend a toe link, over. So you have to manage the risk a little bit. And I think 10 guys managed their risk to just get through. The 45, 20th.
So could you have challenged Larson then had it not been a playoff cut?
I don't know about that. That'd be a strong accusation to make. I think you have to give them their due that they were just the best car, best driver on that day. But there was a time, I'm looking here, with about like 420 to 450, I was hauling ass. And at that point, I got the word that we're good here. We're good. And
I don't think the points necessarily and the way the playoffs work necessarily are making drivers react that way. Like you talk about it all the time, just finish where you're supposed to finish. So if William Byron is running 10th and it's like, well, I have a 7th to 10th place car here. Let me just
William Byron could go get a 10th of raw speed if he wants to push it. And at that point, a 10th, he could vault himself 4 or 5 spots. And if he's doing this over a 10 race period, he's going to value that more. But if he knows all I got to do to move on and all this gets reset, I'm just going to finish where I need to finish.
Right, but isn't that what, regardless of playoff points and all that, if the season was just a cumulative point structure or whatever, like that's what guys are going to do for the most part. It's like, okay, my car, I'm not good enough to beat Kyle Larson in this race. I mean, I didn't be good enough to beat Christopher Bell and Denny Hamlin in this race. But if I finish 7th, like that's where my car is supposed to finish.
You're only going to see like this wild drama, cars pushing it, for about 4 or 5 guys every cut line. The rest are just, we're good to go. Like, it doesn't matter what you do. You're going to get your points reset anyway.
So that's the issue.
At
then
the end of the day.
Just don't reset the points then. Change that format.
Maybe.
So then it's a cumulative of everything. Those 3 races, those carry on.
I don't think it. I think it's like
but then you're going to have people that are eliminated that have a better, say their next race or the next race.
No. You're eliminated, but then these 12.
But the person eliminated has more points than
The top 12 that advance. Every point that you accumulated in those 3 races carry over instead of resetting.
Yeah, I don't know. We'll spend forever trying to fix all this stuff. I think we got to just move on from it. Understand it is what it is, and we have to just race what we got. Be happy.
And temper expectations.
And certainly NASCAR wasn't in love with what they saw, and they don't love the comments and the media personalities saying what they're saying about, the racing. So surely they're going to put pressure on someone to fix it, and it's likely going to be Goodyear.
I think though, if drivers, if drivers felt like they could move through the field if they pushed it, maybe they would, right? Like I'm sure Ty Gibbs is pushing it, and Truex is pushing it because they have to move through the field, but it just seemed like it was out of their control.
You couldn't pass the car 3-4 laps down. If they really were on the gas, like they had to really concede the spot to really give it to you. Otherwise, you would spend half a run trying to work them over. It was difficult, no doubt about it.
Was Kyle Larson, the 5 team, as dominant as they were because they may have prepped for a different type of race?
You never know. But they've been really good at that track for years now and have led a boatload of laps at that track. So you just put them, it seemed like right from the get-go, even practice, their car was really good, really fast. Put them out front on a track that is, like we talked about, hard to pass, and it's going to be difficult. But he found his way through traffic, lap cars, things like that. Nothing really held him up too much throughout the day. So I think it's just one of those magical weekends where, maybe they guessed right on the tire wear stuff. Maybe they just hit it overall. You just never know. But either way, definitely untouchable. Did
you think you had a shot on that restart? You were front row with him, that if you could maybe get there, or did you know on that being the inside that you weren't going to get him?
The inside is not preferred on the restart for sure. But I just didn't have the short run speed I needed. All weekend struggled to have the short run speed to really compete that well. So I'm not sure whether it's setup changes or just me, not getting after it enough. Could be a combination of many of those things. But overall, I just think, never... there was a time when I got to third, then got to second in a long run.
That was when Truex had the speeding penalty. You moved up to second.
Yeah, but on one of the long runs, I think I passed Seabell for second. Like, Larson was right there, like 10, 12 car lengths in front. Now, he was getting held up in traffic, but I don't know. Not really. Not really did I feel like I had it.
Every time that you were pitting, did it go through your mind that, like, hey, let's just make sure we come out of this pit sequence but without a penalty, considering that's probably the only thing that was going to end your season?
When you know how hard it is to pass, you just cannot have a penalty.
Like, how does that happen to Truex and Ty? Like, is that just a lapse?
Yeah, I don't know. I thought I was being... Go ahead, Travis.
Letarte mentioned that, I think with Gibbs, he thought he was taking the corner too tight. And so that's why... Because the speeding penalty was right after his box. And
where was his box?
It was sector 6, I want to say.
Okay, so it was before the bend. So was he pitted on the back? What? Turn 3? Yeah, so when he accelerates out of his box, then he held it probably too tight. What is it? Did he speed in 6?
Yeah, that's where the speeding was.
6 is the segment right after the last pit box on the backstretch. So I've got caught speeding there before. If I was pitted in that last box, if you go dead straight there and go straight to your lights, you'll pit. You'll speed. It's just some of the nuances that, like, I know that because I've I've done it before. I've been doing this for 20 years, and you kind of know all those little spots on pit road that you can find yourself getting caught speeding, and that's one of them for sure if you shortcut that edge.
Well, we talked about this before, right? Is that with the pit roads that are curved like that, obviously the bottom is a shorter distance than the top.
Yeah.
So you have to approach it differently.
When I was running pit road speed, I was running a much lower line than everyone else was, but I've got years and years of data on that line that I run and know where I need to be at that point. So while everyone else runs higher and runs probably more lights, I run less lights and then run a tighter radius. That's just kind of always the way I've done it. And so we haven't really changed it. So
was there a message to the team like, hey, Denny, don't speed, pit crew, be smart, don't, you know?
Chris expects me to know all those things. He doesn't really, he didn't reiterate them that much. Now, I told him, obviously don't talk to me about points. But I did say, unless something major, unless all my competitors are out and it's a free ride at that point, then you can let me know. But he knows, he expects me to be prepared going into the weekend. And I make sure that I'm prepared. So he doesn't need to tell me, don't speed, right? I think, he will in an instance where that is the only thing that is going to keep us from advancing or winning on that day. He'll tell me. But other than that, he just, lets me do my job.
I did find it funny that with like 35 to go, you said, I don't need a countdown. And then like 20 laps later, you're like, where are we at?
Yeah, because when it gets towards the end of the race, my spotter, Chris Lambert, he'll get more regular with how many laps to go. And it just creates a sense of urgency a little bit too much in the cockpit for me, especially when I'm trying to get to the finish line. So I didn't want to count down. I just wanted to run laps, get in a rhythm. And I felt like, the best thing for me is just, the last thing I heard was 35 to go or 38 to go. 35 to go. And so I knew, hey, I got about 10 more minutes of racing here. I just need to keep going.
Ty Gibbs, Martin Truex Jr., Brad Keselowski, and Harrison Burton knocked out in this round of 16. Anything stand out there to you? Unexpected, expected?
Yeah, I mean, disappointed a little bit for Truex and his team. Obviously, they were running well before he had that penalty. He obviously feels really, really bad about, after the race, he said, he let his team down. He didn't do a very good job. And so it sucks in your last season to go out in the first round. And certainly I got a tremendous amount of respect for Martin Truex. And, hope he gets a win here in these last few races of his career. Him going out, I think is a surprise. I mean, just because.
Is it?
Yeah, he's with a top organization. He's a top flight driver. Things have gone really for them over the last few months, but I don't know. I mean, there's many others that you would have going out before him, right? But but they didn't. For instance, Daniel Suarez. How much do you think that guy likes Atlanta? It got him in the playoffs, and then it allowed him to advance. Right. In the next round.
Yeah, I think he
That's
likes
it.
Atlanta.
Those are the only two. Those two races alone has put him in the top 12. The last lap at Atlanta in the spring got him in the playoffs. And then a good run in the first race of the playoffs got him in, because last week went bad. Well, this week went atrocious.
Last week was average. He still finished, 15th?
Did he?
I think so. He was in the sand pit, obviously, which is what you remember from this race. But I still think he managed to finish 15th.
Okay. Suarez has got to want to run 36 races at Atlanta, I think. I mean, seriously. But, I mean, one racetrack, think about that.
13th at Watkins Glen.
Okay, so he probably had an opportunity to pull some strategy there at some point. All right, well, still, he didn't run well He might have finished well. He didn't run well.
31 points
at Watkins Glen. Yeah, so it's 31. That means he got some stage points as well.
He hit that magic. What'd you say the point number was? Like 75?
Do you know how many I scored this round?
Probably 75. 76. Yep. Analytics don't lie.
That's right. Okay.
Did it feel good to put together a well-executed race,
Yes.
stage one, stage everything?
Yes. That's the biggest thing I can kind of take away from here is like the shoe didn't drop. Things kind of played out naturally, and we got a great finish. That's what we expect week in, week out. What we probably got to do better, and I got to do better, is that when adversity does hit or you get that untimely caution, how do you use that as an opportunity to advance versus just trying to protect at that moment? So I think that's where certainly I can get better, and we overall can get better. Just trying to, let's get a better finish than what we were supposed to get. Now it's tough when you're running up front to try to get a better finish than what you're running. It becomes easier when you're not running good on a given day. But yeah. All right. So to go back on, so Truex, I think that's a surprise. Brad K, I think that's a surprise. Any comments on Brad K being eliminated?
I don't think so. I don't necessarily think that any of these guys are a surprise, considering the way this first round of the playoffs was made up.
Okay, that's a legitimate argument, given the wildness of the tracks and the unpredictability of the finishing order due to the type of tracks we were running. Yes, you have a very valid point there. I just thought, yeah, I think Atlanta. I think they hit it right on TV. Atlanta was the big swing and miss for Brad K there. Usually, the last few Atlanta races he had run really well. Just didn't have it this time, and so that compiled with two other really bad finishes just was not enough for him. Ty Gibbs, thoughts on him going out first round?
I think that's probably the most surprising, considering where they were on the cut line. But then again, Chase Briscoe and Stuart Haas showed up. Ty was racing Briscoe in this race, and Stuart Haas showed up, and Ty made a mistake.
Yeah, if you're Briscoe and you're Ty, you got to think that, okay, going into the weekend, you have to assume that either myself or Martin, who are within shouting distance, or Brad, one of us is going to have a really good day. So one of us is not going to make it. So at that point, it's outrun the other. So if you're Ty, you got to outrun Briscoe. If you're Briscoe, just outrun Ty. You'll be fine, right? And it looked like it was going to be a really tight battle. It really was, because they looked very, very similar on speed. Briscoe and Stuart Haas, hats off to them. Richard Boswell's doing a fabulous job, getting that team speed that we have not seen all season. It is out of the blue. It's very Blaney-esque from last season where you just didn't see or hear much from him. And then, bam, here comes playoff time. And then all of a sudden, the differences with Blaney, they were winning races, but he's up front. Like his average running position has got to be substantially better than what it was during the regular season. So not sure what's prompted that, but they're on it at this moment.
What about, they said that they were going to be, Graxon's setup was going to be similar, whatever, to Briscoe, so they could make some tweaks or whatever. Does that give them a little advantage that they have another car that they're messing with to figure out what Briscoe should be doing? Yeah,
so what they'll do is both cars will go the track the same, and then what will happen is Richard Boswell will have a set of changes that he would like to try, but there's only so much time for Briscoe to do that, right? He gets probably one opportunity, one change to make during practice. Well, if you got another car, you can send that car down, say, hey, I want you to try this in the middle of practice, and they'll give him that feedback. So it wasn't just Briscoe. Priest finished 7th. Gregson finished 12th. So they all had good days at Stuart Haas. Except for Barry. Barry, 4 laps down. Not good. So the Ty Gibbs, surprised. I am. I just thought he was going to have more speed than Briscoe, but it's more of a credit to Briscoe than it is anything.
Where was Gibbs running before the speeding penalty, though?
Top 10, right?
Yeah, 5th, 6th in that range, I believe. He's running right there where I was at, right around that range. So that was just a killer. The speeding penalty was a killer. We saw what it did to Truex. Truex really never came back. He ended up one lap down in 24th, so nearly 2 laps down. And then Harrison. Props to Harrison. Great Daytona. That last green-white checkered or whatever it was, getting into the playoffs. I think if you listen to kind of John Wood and what they had to say is that they probably didn't expect to go very far in these playoffs, but their season it was made at Daytona, and such a great accomplishment getting the 100th win there for Wood Brothers. It's awesome for Harrison. He announced he's going to be going to AM Racing in Xfinity next year. So at least staying in NASCAR with a full-time opportunity is good, and hopefully gets a reset there. And it's certainly the Wood Brothers is going to reap benefits of that win for years to come.
This next round of the playoffs is very similar to this first round, except it's flipped. The track where you can expect the same results that you typically see is first, Kansas, and then you go to Talladega, your super speedway, which you have no idea what you'll see, and then the Roval to end it all off.
Yeah. So certainly, if you're someone like myself, you want to go to Kansas and be on it, right? You want to have a big day right off the bat there, be aggressive at Talladega, try to get some points, and then...
Wait, what'd you say?
Be aggressive at Talladega, try to get some points.
So this is on the record.
What?
Not just going to try to get 20?
I'm going to drive to my car's ability. How about that?
That's fair.
Okay. Again, do I need to reiterate? I was in no way, shape, or fashion able to drive my car around others until 50 laps to go at Atlanta. My car was out of control. I tried to race once, and I nearly crashed. And so I did what I could, all right? And it was good enough, so it's time to move on. Talladega, you got to just, however it plays out. If you get wrecked, you get wrecked. That's just part of it. But, we hope to go to Kansas this weekend and do what we've done there for the last 3 or 4 years in a row, which is run strong, compete for a win. If we can do that, we'd love to just punch our ticket and move on.
4 wins, 15 top 10s, 14 top 5s.
Thanks. You're my hype man.
Do you feel pressure to win this race, though?
No. I mean, if you don't have pressure to win, I mean, you got to love pressure, though. Like, some people don't love pressure. I feel like I do, and at no point was I nervous this weekend. Now, I can be nervous about things that are maybe out of my control, but the things that are in my control, not nervous about at all. And so I know what I need to do when I go to Kansas, and that's run strong and contend for the win. But I'm not putting undue or more pressure on myself than I do each and every week. I mean, ultimately, my goals in NASCAR are still the same thing, and that is to get wins. I get wins. That's what really matters in the end for me, is to put myself in that top 10 of winners in NASCAR history. To do that, you got to win races. And so that's what I want to do. And if I just run up front and run like I normally do, we should move on. If things happen negatively, then you deal with that situation as it arises.
Legitimate question, though. Do you have, do analytics show you want to score this many points in this round? Like, you're trying to score this many points at Kansas, knowing historically you could score X points at Talladega, and then the Roval, I typically scored this amount of points.
Yeah. Where the analytics was kind of imperfect thing in the first round is because we had a different track in there, right? I think that the Roval Talladega round has always been there. So yes, you can use analytics more on this round. But I don't know. There's no point number I'm trying to get to is the gist of it. It's just all about what can I do to win the race on Sunday. And if I can't win, get the best finish possible.
Yeah, you're just entering this round in a much different situation than you have in the past, right? You're only single-digit points above the cut line versus multiple points above.
Right. Right. Yeah.
30.
It's different. It's certainly. I've got to perform as good or better than what I have in the past.
Is this a mental reset now that you're through this first round?
Yes.
And, you said on the radio afterwards. Now it's on, boys.
Yeah, I mean, certainly, we had such a bad start to the playoffs that now it's like, and still this is a very questionable round when it comes to, deciding your own fate at times. But it's like, if you get past this one, then it really starts getting juicy for us the rest of the year. And so, but we can decide what happens this weekend. So, in short, the schedule gets more favorable as we go. So we got to just get through it.
How was Lulu Saturday night or Sunday morning?
She was good. Doing good. She's got some new goodies. I think PetSmart gave us some goodies to try to change the luck. So I don't know. There was no real luck needed in this one. Or maybe there just wasn't bad luck, right?
There it is.
No late caution that just destroyed everything. That's good.
Were you worried when that one caution did come out at the end of stage 2 that more cars might stay out?
Yeah, I didn't love that. Didn't love that for sure. I think I was running second at the time. And at that point, I'm like, let's get this thing in. And the caution came at a very weird spot where it was like, is this going to be the end of the stage or not?
That's when Reddick stayed out.
Yeah. And so, fortunate for him, he did stay out there. They were probably closer on points than what they were planning on, but they saw an opportunity there to try to get some points. So I just think generally I did not want to see that caution. Certainly the more the natural the cautions are and the more predictable they are, the less variables that kind of get thrown in the mix.
What's your relationship like with Gabe Hart in these playoffs? I find it interesting being around y'all. Like after last week, we joked about it on the show where he was like, you got to do something with that dog. And knowing Gabe Hart, there's not a ounce of thought in his mind where he thinks the dog is going to play a role in this 11 cars season outcome, right? But despite all the things going on in your life, other podcasts, Kevin Harvick, all these other NASCAR people talking, right? We're like worried about all the things going on, the charter stuff and, you blaming bad luck on your dog and all these things. But Gabe Hart and you guys were still very light about your approach to these races in this round, despite a bit of adversity. What is your relationship like with him? And just everything.
It's good. It's just you go through times like this. I think everyone goes through times like this in their career. And certainly it would be a lot more difficult if we didn't have speed. When you have bad luck, luck being a very loose word, and you're not running and you're not fast, that's when you're back there in the high 20s and 30s in points. Like it's just your year's terrible. And, at that point you're just searching for top 15s, top 20s and, praying every week that you don't go multiple laps down. We're not in that position. And so we know every 7 days we have an opportunity to win. And so not many people have that opportunity. And so we try to take it as light as we can because we know that we're still playing a game. And we're having fun with it. We're accomplishing a lot, and regardless of the outcome, as long as we do the best that we can each and every week, like we're going to give ourselves more chances to win than most. And that doesn't mean we're going to win more than most, but we're going to give ourselves more chances. And that's a great feeling 20 years into this to know that you're still can be the most dominant car on any given day.
But despite everything going on, the little bit of adversity here and there, every time on the radio that something comes up, he always says, "You're the driver." It's almost like for you two to succeed, you both kind of have to like take yourself back and say, "Okay, I put all my trust into you," and the other person says, "Okay, I put all my trust into you." Right? No one is in this like, well, Denny decided he wanted to run at the back at Talladega. We're not going with his choices anymore. We're following mine. Right? The analytics say start on the top here. You're doing that, but Gabe Hart kind of just says, "Well, you're the driver. You do what you want."
Yeah. I think I think starting our relationship off on the right foot really mattered in the sense of, I gave him the reins of this race team when he took over. I wasn't the veteran who says, okay, this is the way that I've always done things. Here's how I like it. It was more, you just tell me what to do and I'll go do it. Right. And so I think that there's just a tremendous amount of respect. He was a race car driver himself. He knows what it's like to sit in, while not a cup car, a race car. And he knows that sometimes data or analytics or, situations or past history doesn't always paint the correct picture. And he trusts that when I'm in a car, that I'm self-analyzing a lot of things, and maybe I can give input that would be very useful. And maybe it's a decision that counters his decision. But he trusts that when I do speak up and say, here's what I think. He certainly values it. He doesn't just put it off to the side saying, well, you don't know the whole picture. So that is an extremely important thing in our relationship, that he trusts me and I trust him. And he understands when I'm adamant about something. He takes it very seriously. He's like, okay, why is he thinking that? He must see something that I don't see. And vice versa, it goes the other way as well.
Have you always been loose before big moments, or at what point in your career did you kind of develop that ability to not get tight? Because you always hear about teams after they have a big loss, whatever, the team was too tight, they were too worried, and you need to play loose or drive loose.
After 2010, for me personally, it was kind of the moment where I went into that final race at Homestead with the point lead. I was so disappointed over not finishing Jimmy at Phoenix. We had them, our foot on their throat. It was over, and we ran out of gas. That was certainly just a letdown moment. And at that point, I just took things way too seriously. I didn't approach that final week at Homestead like I did every other week of the season. And I played too tight in the sense of like, I saw someone qualifying in a different line and they ran fast, and it was like, oh no, I haven't practiced up there, but they just set fast time. So I just got to go for it. And then I qualify way in the back and then get put 3 wide, get in a crash. Right. So I just think the failure that I had from 2010 really taught me to just be in the moment, have fun with it. Don't treat it too seriously. It is still just a game. Nobody really cares, about the outcome. It's still, I've still accomplished way more than I ever thought I would have. So why be upset if I fail in one given moment, right? So I just think that that's worked for me over the last decade, and I've used it to just, be more content and more confident with kind of who I am personally and professionally, and it's worked for me.
Yeah, I think it's just, I don't know the right word for it, but super interesting following along. Like through all this, we were blaming your poor finishes
as a joke
on your joke on your dog. But it's like, this guy's in the playoffs, right? He's like racing for his career, like livelihood. Like this is super important, and we're joking that saying that this is your dog's fault.
I know.
I couldn't take it any more lighthearted than that.
I take it as that's how I knew that you were loose, because if you were really worried, I don't think we're making these jokes. But the fact that this is happening is like, this team isn't worried about where they're at. They're confident in themselves.
We could have a disastrous round here and go out. And I don't even know how many. I feel like I couldn't remember whether I'd went out in the first round before. I think maybe I have once, but even the next round, I feel like I haven't gone out many times in the round 12. But if I do, I do. In the end, no one really cares. So I'm just going to do the best that I can and try to get as many wins as I can before my career is over. That's ultimately the list that I really, really care about, because the drivers that are in it are just the most elite. And so that's my goal, and I've got plenty of time to get to the accomplishments that I want. And a Cup championship would just add to that. I mean, certainly would be such a big deal to me, my family. I want it for my dad. I said it many times. I want it for my family as much as I want it, and my friends as much as I want it for me. But it's I'm going to be fine regardless of the outcome, and I'm going to be okay no matter what happens.
Well, NASCAR certainly cares, because I think whether you're a fan of the driver of the 11 or not, the NASCAR season is way more interesting knowing and wanting to know if Denny's going to finally win a championship this year. And if you were to go out in this round, the following 4 races would be significantly less exciting, I feel like.
Yeah, maybe. Certainly, I can't be the judge of that, but I mean, certainly there are groups of people or lots of fans that root for my failure, right? I know that. I did not, unfortunately, see them in my mentions this week. I was trying to figure out where all my trolls were this week, because I went back a little bit and maybe saw some people that I could have trolled from what you said last week, but I'm going to be the bigger man here and not say anything, nor give you the attention that you're so desperately wanting. But it's cool by me. Honestly, when they boo and they make so much noise at driver intros, like, I love making them feel some sort of way. And for my buddy Steel Horse Live, who tweeted that, look at this guy that flipped off Denny every lap he came back around. He's like,
That's dedication.
I mean, that is someone that, I am just burning I'm an ulcer in their body that just is just eating them alive. And I love that.
Living rent free.
Yes.
But Jared, to your point, you're saying people want him because it's more compelling. I tell you what, as an avid sports fan, I want to see certain teams lose all the time. So there's a big section of the NASCAR fan base that would love to have seen him not advance last week.
Right, but do you want to see him not advance?
I want to see
Michigan 12, or do you want to see him?
I want to see Michigan
lose
lose every fucking race.
But think about this
game.
If you're a hater of myself and the 11 team, if I would have not advanced, now your season's over.
No, because then you didn't.
No, your season's over.
Right. That's what I'm saying.
Yes.
I want to see you make it
now.
to Phoenix,
They can
and then
continue to hate for the next at least 3 more weeks.
No, you didn't advance. That's the worst part.
No.
Like, I wanted Michigan to lose to USC. I want them to lose this week. I want them to lose every game. I hate them. So if I hate Denny Hamlin, I don't want you to advance, because that's now a good Bristol race.
Yeah, but now you're watching the next 3 races to see if he loses.
You can still suck next week, though.
No, once you're out, listen. Nobody, like I said, nobody really cares anyway. And then B, if you're out of the playoffs, really, I mean, your camera time gets cut to like 0. So it's just, I'm telling you, I eat inside of people's souls, and now they get to have the hope that I'm going to fail for 3 more weeks, versus now it's over for them, and they celebrate that quick moment for a day, but then they would realize, oh, well, who am I going to root against now? I'm just a professional hater. I got to find somebody else to hate on.
That's how I see it. You got a
Me
reason
too.
To, you got a
I
reason
see
to
it
watch
the same
now.
as you. Yeah, I see it the same as you.
Let's talk about these playoff standings real quick. Kyle Larson plus 39. Christopher Bell.
Boy, he's got to be feeling good.
Yeah, I mean, it's a whole race.
That is a whole race.
Jared, how are you feeling?
Which is so
Great.
deserved. Like, let me tell you something. It's my opinion, Kyle Larson should be 100 points ahead. Book him in the Final Four. There's no reason in any type of format should that 5 car not be in the Final Four racing for a championship. But he is just 1 race ahead with 3 races to go. So, anything can happen. But he's got to be feeling the best, certainly.
Christopher Bell plus 24.
Feeling pretty good.
Tyler Reddick plus 20.
Feeling pretty good.
William Byron plus 14.
Feeling all right.
Blaney plus 11.
Been here. Feels good.
Hamlin plus 7.
We're great.
Elliott plus 6.
Doesn't care anyway. he don't care.
Logano's last driver above the cut line at plus
That's a
4.
joke, by the way. He does care. Logano, he's great in these moments, so don't count him out for sure.
And then
but how's he feeling? He's feeling all right about it.
And then Cindric, Suarez, Bowman, and Briscoe -4, -6, -7, -7, respectively.
Yeah. They're all that group hopes for super speedways every race. I mean, I don't know. I mean, certainly Briscoe's got some looks like he's got the most speed of those four. I don't know. Bowman's really showed up here lately. So Bowman, Briscoe probably feeling pretty good. They moved on, and now they've got another opportunity with a couple of wild card races that they can pounce on any one of those middle guys having a bad race or two. They could end up right back up at the top where they were.
Yeah, it seems like if you're a guy that's well above this cut line or just above it, you're trying to pad your point positivity in this next race so that you can limit the detriment of a poor finish in either Talladega or the Roval.
Yeah, it's it'll be interesting to see how it all plays out. But yeah, it's by the way, great accomplishment, Austin Cindric. Not only getting in, he got in because he won that race at Gateway, but then he had a great first round, generally speaking. Where did he end up? 13th at Bristol, a lap down, but still, I'd argue that's probably the best he's run at Bristol in quite some time. So shout out to Austin Cindric, doing a great job. Moving on, Suarez has got a new life now. They can put Bristol behind them. That 31st place finish was not good at all. But now, hey, you're dealing with house money now, right? All these guys at the bottom, Cindric, Suarez, Bowman, Briscoe, I think they've got nothing to lose and everything to gain.
If there's one driver that's currently below the cut line to advance to the next round, who do you think is most likely?
Alex Bowman. Yeah, I'll go Bowman. I think has the most capability of speed. I think Kansas is a good racetrack for him. I think the Roval's good for him, and I think that at Talladega he's going to have some support, some Chevrolet support around him. So my vote would go Bowman. As moving on,
I think Cindric's another guy that could.
He very well could. Truthfully, it would not shock me if any one of those four move on. Like the bigger question or the bet is how many of them move on? What's your guess on that? I have my thoughts.
I probably 2.
Yeah, 2. 2 is the number. I think 2 of them in, 2 of them out.
1 seems too little and 3 seems too much.
Yep,
that's all. A few off-track things before we wrap up this podcast. Bubba Wallace contract extension. 23XI announced that earlier this week.
Yeah, it's great to get that solidified for Bubba. We had really kind of ironed all that stuff out long time ago. But man, he had a great Bristol. Man, he was coming on quick there at the end. Those are the kind of runs that is hopefully going to build him some momentum towards next year. Again, if he runs as good as he is now next year for the first 26 races, he's going to find himself in the playoffs, and not only in the playoffs, but making a deep run. So really happy to have him part of our team. He's been great with our sponsors, and certainly on-track performance continuing to get better and better every single year.
How much, I don't know if value is the right word for it, but Bubba didn't make the playoffs this year. However, he is having a career best year in every other statistical category.
Right.
How much does not making the playoffs weigh down those other performance accolades?
It's a good question. It certainly taints it, right? But you got to be strong enough mentally to really dial out and say, I made it last year by not being as good. I was better this year and didn't make it. That's because things that you can't control came into play, which is you had more outside winners. You had some fuel mileage races went haywire. There was more variables that kept them out. I mean, Chase Elliott got hurt last year. So the 23 car still hasn't made the playoffs, but Bubba did last year. But because the 9 car had multiple drivers. So you got to just zoom out and say, am I running better? Is my driver rating better? Is my statistics better? Where's my average running position? Is it better? Those are the things you really just need to concentrate on to decide, are you truly getting better or not? And in every category that I can see, Bubba is absolutely getting better, and it still needs to continue to get better year after year.
But as an owner, is that how you're looking at it? Or are you saying, okay, it's time to extend Bubba's contract? Look at these things. He's getting better and better and better. Or are you looking at like, well, dude, our goal here is to have 2 cars in the playoffs every year, and you didn't make the playoffs, and you made it last year because of Chase and all that, but you didn't make the playoffs in the last 2 years. So you're not living up to expectations. Like which is it?
No, he knows the expectation, and that is, with the resources we have over at 2311, we expect both of our cars to make the playoffs every single year. However, we are realistic with our expectations in the sense of, when Bubba got into our equipment, he was mid-20s. That's where he was finishing week in, week out. And it could be equipment, it could have been Bubba, whatever it was, right? But year after year after year after year after year, the data shows that he's getting better. Anybody with 2 eyes and a brain can watch a race and see he's better than what he was. So that's what we care about. And as long as he continues on this same trajectory, then all parties are going to remain happy.
Are you heavily involved in the driver contract stuff at 2311, or you kind of relinquish that power to somebody else?
No, I'm in all of them. Yeah.
Justin Haley and Corey LaJoie officially swapping rides for the remainder of the season. That starts this weekend at Kansas. So Justin Haley will be in the 7 and Corey LaJoie will be in the 51.
I think this is good for both. The reason is I think it takes pressure off of Corey. He had teammates, where Zane is coming into his own. Trackhouse letting go to Zane. I don't know where Zane ends up, but he's coming into his own really quickly. You had Hocevar coming in as a rookie, performing great. Shout out to Carson. Doing just a tremendous job this year. Always been super polite to myself off the racetrack. I think he's setting himself up for a very, very, very bright future. He's doing great. And you're really seeing, that probably puts some undue pressure on Corey, right? He's got these young guys coming in, they're performing really well, and then you push. And then when you push, you wreck. And certainly, there's a lot of trolls getting at Corey quite a bit here lately because of all the wrecks that he's been in or caused. But, this is going to be best for him to go over Rick Ware. And if you can go get some good results out of that 51, which it is capable of doing, Justin Haley has shown that it's very capable of running well, then it maybe can be that springboard back into a top flight team into the future. I think it unloads some of the pressure to perform because everyone knows that the 51 doesn't have the funding that those other, most of the field has. So if he's able to go out there and get the most out of it, then it looks better for Corey. And if he doesn't run well, people will just chalk it up to, his equipment's not as good.
Yeah, but we're seeing Justin Haley run well in the 51. So now
he's running well, but he also has bad races.
What if Haley runs really well in the 7 though?
As long as then it looks good on Haley.
And looks bad on LaJoie though.
Yeah, but I mean, sometimes you just need a reset. And I just think that, there was a lot of pressure on Corey coming into the year. Spire had a merger or acquire, whatever it was. They had a group come in, spend some money, and he knew that his resources were going to be more. And there's pressure to that. And then when you have these young shoes coming in on your team performing well, that adds more pressure. I get it. I've been in that position. But I just think it's best. I think this is a good swap, and I think it's very smart by both teams. Let's kick this off. Let's get a jump start on next year. I think it's going to be a tremendous opportunity for Haley. And so, yeah, let's just see where this all irons out. And once we get enough sample size, by maybe the end of year or mid next year, we'll see, is Corey, going to be able to do this at a high level or not? But I think we still need some more time to find that out.
Are you high on Justin Haley's talent? Are you kind of excited to see him work with Rodney Childers next year?
Yeah, I think that's going to be a great combination. Certainly the best opportunity that he's had. It's well-deserved, which is why I always try to tell people and young drivers when they ask for advice on this, is that it doesn't matter, even if you're your local short track level, it does not matter if you're not winning. As long as you're running better than what your car is capable of, people notice that. When Justin Haley goes and he's running top 10, top 15 at some of these tracks, that aerodynamics is a big deal, and we know that there's no way that car is aerodynamically as sound as others, but he's still wheeling it. You take notice of those things, and that's what gives you these opportunities to, someone says, okay, I see you running 28 there. That's not bad. And then all of a sudden, wow, paying attention, you're running 20th with something that I deem a 30th place car. That's pretty impressive. Man, if he got in my stuff, I bet he could really go. You know what I mean? That's what car owners start to think. And so it just goes to show winning is important. And I agree. Always, if you have the opportunity to move up, move down and win first. But if you do get an opportunity in Cup or Xfinity in a car that is not historically a winner or a contender, and you find little bright spots of accomplishing great finishes, people will take notice and you will get a chance.
Yeah. I mean, seen it with Chase Briscoe, right?
Yes.
Getting all he can out of his Stuart Haas stuff. Now he's moving into Truex's car.
Yep.
Anything else this week? Got anything off the track?
Nope. Hoop group playoffs start.
You playing Austin? Have you played Austin Dillon's team since then? Whatever came of that.
We already documented that.
We did?
He had rib problems.
No, I know.
Paul Swan gave him an old rib jab right there in Victory Lane at Richmond and knocked the rib loose. So he was out for like 3 weeks, but he's back.
Right. So who does Smoke Show play this weekend?
We play the Hooligans.
Hooligans. Who's on the Hooligans? Anyone noteworthy?
My brother-in-law, Josh Neely.
Any prediction for how you're going to do in the playoffs?
No idea. I got a great team, though. You can follow us at the Hoop Group, I think. Is that right?
Yeah.
Put out some good content.
Charlie does well.
Yeah, I put it in my stories sometimes. I was trying to see what the actual was.
We share a podcast studio with the Hoop Group, actually.
Now we do, apparently. Right, Travis, and you guys had to...
I'm gonna start charging Charlie for phone calls for consultation.
Oh, you should.
That's the _ Hoop Group.
Yeah. All right. No, I don't have anything else. Looking forward to Kansas. No place like Kansas. Hopefully we can get us a dub. Move on to the round of 8.
I got a review here from Chorizo23. Love the podcast. Great weekly listen. I'm going to my first race at Kansas next week and bringing my dad. He used to work for FedEx, so I got him one of your FedEx merch shirts. Can't wait to see you race all in.
Awesome. Well, look forward to seeing you. Say hello if I pass by. If not, I'll give you an autograph if I'm close by. But yeah, enjoy the race this weekend, and we'll see y'all on Monday.